And welcome back again, ladies and gentlemen, to another recap review of the final season of Snowfall, brought to you from Big Gold Belt Media. It's your guy, or not at this point, Lucas. With my guy, Najer. What's going on this evening, sir?
Or not at this point
Hey,
too.
hey, look. Hey, I hate to disappoint y'all first. I didn't get in the comment section like I already knew what was going to happen. I glanced real quick. Y'all was going crazy in there. We greatly appreciate that for all the comments. Even the negative ones are funny. Some of y'all perspectives are extremely good, extremely interesting. So we do greatly appreciate y'all in the comment section. But some of y'all, I'm just not going to respond to this week. I said what I said last week, and you got to deal with it. But
Yeah,
here
and
we
if
are
you
on
you get in
oh,
there
go ahead.
disrespectful too, yeah, you would get got. Like I'm not even about to even allow that. Like you can have whatever opinion you want. You can rebuttal anything we have to say, but the moment you start coming for character, listen, we don't do as they call the Twitter fingers now. So those those
Hey,
those joints
hey,
will get got.
hey. All I'm gonna say, just check out some of our other reviews of other shows. Enough people know about me. I'm not worrying about y'all out there in the streets. We're good. We're good. I'm a nice citizen now to give y'all this amazing content. And again, we still appreciate everybody who jumps in, views,
Yeah.
everything. Uh Takes time to even place a comment. I know some of them don't be wrong, but hey,
Yeah.
we still greatly appreciate it because you took your time behind your fake profile to still post a comment, and we greatly
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Mhm.
But here we are on episode 8. This is Ballad of the Bear. And after the explosive way we ended off last episode, this episode we get with Gustavo arriving at Jerome's wake. This is the wake that Franklin told him to come to at the end of the last episode. And here we get to see the range of emotions from so many different people at this wake before we get the conversation between Franklin and Gustavo that we kind of already knew was going to take place about the setup of Teddy, about putting their plan forward. First, what did you just think about, especially Leon? Because that's what I want to focus on here when I think about the range of emotion in this scene. What do you think about everyone at this wake, how they're reminiscing about Jerome? My man Einstein with the cool Jerome shirt, which I gotta find. I gotta get that shirt. And just uh Franklin acknowledging Leon's emotions in the scene before him talking to Gustavo.
Yeah. Um, I thought you was gonna note a very important casting or behind the camera crew. Uh,
I
um,
wanted to talk about that. I wanted to talk about that after we get to this opening scene. Because they do
well,
opening scene, then we do the credits, and then that's when,
yeah, okay. Well, fair enough.
because I think
Uh,
that shot of Louis in the second half of this part is the shot that then I will bring up because that was a hell of a shot.
yeah, either way, wherever you want to put it at.
Hmm.
No, but the opening scene, it was cool because this was a celebration of Uncle Jerome here, Unc, and I think that as sad as it is to lose such an important character for the fans of this
Hmm.
show, to kind of turn this into more of a positive thing, is probably what a lot of us would have wanted as well too. If this was actually a real person, we want to
Yeah.
see folks coming together, chopping it up about him, and we're hearing a bunch of little tidbits talking about like, man, listen, he was certified in these trees. These type of
Yeah.
sidebars that you expect people to have, and even as fans of the show and of this character, you like, yeah, listen, Jerome for 6 seasons, Jerome was holding it down. So it was just cool to see everybody come together from around the hood and give him his flowers and love, and we got to see all our important characters. But yeah, as
Yeah.
noted last week, or was it the week before? Last week, everybody pointed out that interaction, that look between Scully
Oh,
and
yeah.
Leon,
Hmm.
and it was cool to have that moment quickly explained by Scully, basically, letting him know, I forgive you, man. What happened is happened. We're past that. He said, like, you good, my G. Like, we can move past that now. And
Yeah.
Leon's very appropriate response of everything that's happening: one, losing Uncle Jerome, and two, somebody that you wouldn't think it would happen then, but at some point, like, man, this dude has a bullseye on my head. I don't know if it's gonna come
Yeah.
from the front or the back, but like, he has to be after me. And You get him basically saying, "Nah, we good. Like you good, we good." Is it is not at all what he expected. Not at all what he had on his bingo card coming back from Africa. That the one person, the very one person that he knew he probably had to fear the entire time or be concerned with,
Mm-hmm.
forgave him. And then, like you said, Franklin taking eye to that. I think I don't know, man. Maybe it was the lessons learned from him as well too. Maybe he's looking like, man, if Scully can forgive him, like maybe there is a way for everybody to move past
Yeah.
their beefs or whatever it may be. So, but it was a really dope opening scene.
Oh, definitely. And then we get the close of the scene is Louis breaking down, having to get away. But then we get this shot, and it's not much to talk about here, but the shot for me of Louis in this bathroom as she starts to break and then immediately starts to pull herself together. One, I want to talk about it because of the way that was shot. The way that whole scene was set up was amazingly dope by the director this week, who happens to be Uncle Jerome himself, Mr. Amin Joseph, as he directs this episode here. The reason why I wanted to wait to this scene is because one, the close tight shot of Louis here was amazing. Because one, you can only do that off of an actor that you know to pull off that type of shot. And it's a shot that kind of shows the mindset of Louis moving forward in this episode. When you saw her break down and leave the wake and then go into this bathroom, and then that final shot before we get to the rest of the episode, what did you think was going through Louis' head?
Who knows? I think it was still a lot of grieving and processing, and I think that being around anybody who's ever been in her shoes, you
Mm-hmm.
understanding that a person can appear to be fine 1 second, completely broken down the next second, and then the next second after that, completely put back together. And I think the only thing to add to that is that with Louis, we know there's always a plan behind it, or
Yep.
at least
That's what
uh
I'm. Mhm.
yeah, a sense of a plan of action, a steps forward with it. So it was I think it was a dope shot to start the episode off because we're all at the edge of our seat, like where are we going with Louis in this
Yeah.
episode? Who's her target? Who's her allies? And then ultimately, how much more is she going to be able to be at this repass with everybody, where she sort of feels isolated. She mentioned it before, kind of feeling and being by herself. And I think like this it was just interesting to kind of see her process a lot of those feelings within like a 10-15 second shot.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Good
it
acting.
was highly important that they actually did show her alone there.
Mm-hmm.
Sissy's in the living room. Franklin's off, and we understand their relationship. But the point they really wanted to show her in complete isolation, but her still understanding. I'm supposed to grieve, but I gotta be strong here. Like I have to understand the situation that I'm currently in. And speaking of that, the next thing is the conversation between her and Franklin, where
Oh
Franklin tells
wait,
her, I got
I'm sorry. One
what?
one other thing too, yeah, and I think there's something metaphorical about her looking in the mirror in that way too, where I think it's that realization of like a couple of things, and you all can get in the comments. Let us know your thoughts about what you think the meaning of this scene was. But sometimes looking in the mirror is the realization of isolation, where it's like it's just only me, so it's me versus me, or it could be a sense of like her digging deep and something that Insecure does more in a comedic way, but it's that moment of like when you're looking in the mirror and realizing like, listen, like this is a
Hmm.
therapy session with myself here. You need to get it together. You can't be going out like this. And I think a lot of those couple of those things is probably a lot of where that moment of Louis looking in the mirror, what it could possibly mean. But again, y'all can get in the comments, let us know your thoughts on it.
Oh, you already know they're gonna tell us we wrong, but hey, just think about Michael Jackson, Man in the Mirror. That's all I thought about when Louis the Most looks in the mirror. I thought about Michael Jackson. One is the realest song ever made. For
Yeah.
anybody that don't know it, it's the realest song ever made, but it is that reflection of you understanding a change is needed here because I can't go about things the way I've been going through it. And I think that's what the thing with Louis in this mirror at this moment. That's why you got the tight shot. That's why you got the shot of her with the what's the thing you put in your ears? Q-tips.
Yeah.
And you see her hit it with her mascara because I can't have it run, because if it runs, people gonna know I'm breaking down, and I gotta be strong at this moment no matter what. But again, next up is a conversation between her and Franklin. This is where Franklin lets her know, like, I got 24 hours to get this done. I need to know if you're in on the plan here.
Yeah.
But before we get to the second part, because it's definitely a second part of this, because it's a whole one continuous scene, so I'm just gonna go point by point. What did you think about this conversation first between Louie and Franklin, him letting her know exactly what he has, and for Louie to say, I'm only doing this to get from under the thumb of Teddy.
Yeah, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Because at this point now, it's the common denominator as we continue to see the lines are being drawn, who's on what side and who is of what target. For a moment, we thought Louie and Teddy had an agreement or an alliance that focused on Franklin. So to hear her say this, I'm like, I don't know if I trust this or not. Definitely was a moment of like, all right, I know Franklin's desperate, but Louie, what would put you in this state of desperation? I'm gonna be very honest. I said, did I miss an episode here?
Hey,
I was like, did something happen where all of a sudden she's a fear, and everybody should be a fear of Teddy, but you also can make that for Louie, you can make that same argument about Franklin. So I was a little confused about this. So I definitely had my antennas up the entire time. Let me get my camera straight while it's tripping. I had my antennas up the entire time thinking like, what's Louie's ultimate plan? Even to the end of this episode, I'm still thinking like, man, she still got an ace up her sleeve for something. I don't know.
You said it perfectly at the beginning when you said Louie always has a plan.
Yeah.
This for me, and I know I hate Franklin and I love Louie. We get that. Okay.
say it again so they know.
Because that's all they're gonna say anyway when I say this. But clearly to me, when I saw this scene, and even through the rest of this episode, all I kept on thinking is, oh, this is clearly a setup. Because why would she need to be from under the thumb of Teddy? There's no reason for her to. There's no issue between her and Teddy where that would be a problem. Not for someone who still wants to expand their business.
Yeah.
And Teddy ain't gonna stop you from walking away. If you just want to walk away, he'll allow you to walk away. So why does she need to be from under the thumb of Teddy? That's why I found this just odd that this would be the thing. But then next up, we see that, you still can't trust Franklin. As next up, he meets with Gustavo. And this is where he hands Gustavo the money, the passports. They finalize the plans, and Gustavo asks Franklin a highly important question. Did you tell Louie? This is after he told Franklin he needed to meet with his handlers. Then he asked Franklin, did you tell Louie everything? Meaning, did you tell Louie that the DEA has pictures on her buying drugs? And Franklin says, no. Because if I tell her, she'll just run. And I'll find a way to get her out of it. Anything about this conversation before we skip to the last conversation?
No.
Because I know this is something we've talked about repeatedly about this setup. We understand Gustavo is extremely terrified, and he's doing whatever he has to do to get his family out of this.
And it's working. And it's working out for whatever reason.
Yeah.
As of right now, it looks like it's working out.
Yeah. Now, here's the most important conversation here. Tony and Teddy and Steven.
I was about to say, who the hell is Tony?
Yeah. Teddy and Steven.
Oh, yeah. Let me get up on this conversation.
This is where we get the key part, and this is about Teddy getting his blue badge back and what he has to do to get it back. What did you just think about this? Because this is the conversation we've been waiting to take place of, is it ever going to be a situation where Teddy can fully get back with the CIA? Here, it feels like it almost feels like we got to disregard everything that was said last episode to Steven for this to actually be a fact that he can do this for Teddy.
I just feel like I'm like at this point now, I'd be worried about what I even say. Cause I just know everything I say, y'all gonna just rip it. Y'all gonna be like, I still don't believe that they actually care about Teddy here. They said it very. And matter of fact, I think Teddy's hip because they said, listen,
1,000% so.
They said, transfer the money, we'll get you that badge. Well, okay, cool. That if that's what it takes, right? Let's not forget the conversation he just had with Parisa.
Yep. Well, no, he has it later on with Parisa.
Oh, I know.
That
I'm just jumping to it right now because he said,
because we got to, because that's
I'll quickly, no,
Yeah.
I'll just quickly mention, just note right now the conversation that he had with Parisa. So
no,
just
we're gonna
to
go right
focus on
into
this
it
scene.
because I think this is highly important. Once you get past this, because this is just Steven making promises. It's the scene next with Teddy where he says, "I know for a fact now, I can't give the money to them." This is him telling him, "I know he's lying to me." At this point, I can't. That's not even an option for me to go back to the CIA.
Yeah.
I think it's more important here that we have to realize just how smart Teddy is, that it sounded too good. The deal sounded too good, because if it was always as simple as just Teddy transferring the money, Teddy could have done that last year.
I mean, and it kept going from one thing to the next. They was like, "Hey, clean up your act. Don't bring no baggage. Okay, cool. Yeah, maybe we could get you in. But hey, by the way, transfer that money. That's the agency needs that. Okay, make sure you transfer that money."
He made the mistake by saying that it would almost seal it that you would be back once you transfer those assets.
Yeah, good for Teddy for recognizing what I've been saying the entire time. They don't care about Teddy. They don't.
Yeah.
They didn't care when his dad died. They only cared about what Teddy can do in terms of the asset. Asset can change for a revolving door of what the asset is, but something of value, whether it's the money or whether it's Franklin or the drugs, whatever it may be, or whatever bit of knowledge that they can give. The asset is never about. My man gonna be a green badger forever. That's just what it is. And by that, as I keep continuously mentioning, that makes him very dispensable, which means that
that's what they need.
We can use you, but at any point we can cut you completely off. You're a contractor for us, which means that you do something that ain't of good looks of us. Oh, nah, we don't got nothing to do with him. As I continue to tell everybody, look up the story of Edward Snowden, NSA. Completely look that up, and look how when he did, and there was no bad PR towards NSA. There's like, no, it's that guy. That guy, get that guy out of here. That's it. Nobody else, not the admiral. Nobody else took a flat. It was just that guy. It's the same situation here, where Teddy could be the most valuable person of that agency, but because of the line of work and because of him and what he has to do and how big of a liability he could be on any side, you got to keep him at bay. And at this point, it's like, this ain't good for us, but if you give us that money, we'll give it to you. But Teddy's smart. He knows, like, nah, it's not.
You
about
said
the
it
money.
best. And you said Teddy can be the most valuable asset in the world to them, but he already is, because he's dispensable. That is where his value lies at. I think people got to realize, this is still an illegal operation, run by a government agency that's never supposed to be on U.S. soil.
Yep.
Of course, they need him to be dispensable. They need to be able to get rid of him at all costs, and that is the key reason why he'll never be an agent again. Yeah, because you're too valuable not being one for us to make you an agent again. I think it's just a good thing that Teddy picked up on it finally and realized that hope that he had, that everything will work out well, no longer exists. But this is almost the exact same thing his ex-wife was telling him before. Like, you'll bleed, you'll do everything for this flag, not understanding that you're blinded by it. But what did you also think about the promise to Parisa here, by Teddy here, about it looks like engaging to marry her?
Are we at this scene yet? Because this
it's the same scene. It's the same scene.
Yeah. It's easily that I said that he was whipped, and this is his mom's ring. She finds it, which I love how Teddy. This is the true depiction of what is of importance to Teddy. Teddy does not like to be snooped around on. No. He's not paranoid, but he is truly an alphabet boy, which means that when you do something that is uncalculated, it's a problem. By her looking through his stuff, it's like, oh, you found that? He instantly snapped. He snapped like what the fuck are you doing? Essentially. And then was like, but it is her, and I love her. Marry me. It was almost I mean, this is alarming here. Yeah, we talk about Franklin being on the edge here. this has to be around the same characterization here of
Really?
him. I mean, he literally, and again, we've seen him snap and instantly provide a threat. I mean, he's done it with everybody else who's ever tried to undermine him or sneak behind his back or do anything, where
Yeah.
he instantly reacts, and then it is followed by a threat of some sort. But this was him reacting and then like, okay, this is my mom's ring. Will you marry me? He
Do
obviously
you think
said
it's
that.
because of their history? Like, this is not a situation. Everyone else he snapped on, it's not like he had a long history with them. This
I can get
is,
with that. He still feels
yeah,
for her unlike anybody he's ever felt with.
yeah,
I mean, and I think his ex-wife is a testament to that, because
yep,
even she was like, huh, y'all talking again. She was looking like, well, there's no surprise. That's not a
yep.
surprise at all. And I
Hmm.
think that if his wife felt like she was the only, or his ex-wife was the only, or still on top of the totem pole, she would have
Yeah.
like, well, what the hell is she doing here? I thought y'all were done. Like, I thought this was never a thing. But so anywho, this is Teddy looking for his backup plan. Everybody in this episode had their backup plan or
Yep.
contingency plan, and this was her saying we need an insurance of some sort, because that plan ain't going. The CIA thing ain't gonna work. We're out on
Yeah.
that. But yeah, let's get married, because why not?
Man,
You found it, so why not? Let's just
man.
do that thing.
Meet me in the altar in all white dress. We ain't getting no younger. We might as well do this. I
Yeah,
mean,
she had the yams out and everything. I mean, granted, this was the worst proposal ever, because not only did she get the ring to him, I mean, like, come on now. Jeez, but yeah, Teddy's in love. Hey, do anybody care
there
about
you go.
Teddy in love? Get in the comments. Y'all
No,
happy for Teddy in love? I didn't think so. I didn't think so.
no. They too focused on Franklin being right. But the only part we did skip was Gustavo meeting with the DEA. This is where they go over the case again with him. But this is the beginning of the distrust of the DEA completely with Gustavo, as they send another agent with him and let him know we're sending him on a drop because we don't trust you. As they said, other people would be asking a lot more questions about what happens when this op is over. What does that mean for me? You're not asking any questions, which means that's a concern for us, because the only people that don't ask questions are the ones who don't think they have to have a future of dealing with you here. What did you just think about the DEA piecing this together? Because we understand just how nervous Gustavo has been this entire season about this. But for them to piece it together and bring up, you're not asking the questions you should be asking of someone in your situation, something must be up with you.
Yeah, I mean, about time we see a sense of like awareness by the DEA.
Yeah.
Other than that, they just been taking intel from Gustavo this entire time, but basically a cat and mouse game that has not amounted to anything for them. So
Yep.
I guess this was a necessary conversation. I still got questions about the DEA, especially Homegirl. We'll talk about that in a second. But it was right, and I also agree.
Yeah.
I agree, but it was finally important for the DA to have some form of intelligence shown to the viewers that like they're actually, because I mean, when you think about this now, if you don't know anything about anything, you're just like, well, Teddy's hella smart. He works for the government. He's know everything,
Mhm.
and his superiors, they know everything. The DA is government. Why do you seem like a private investigator crew out here trying to do work with the big boys? Like,
Well,
well,
I mean, anybody who knows the actual DEA will tell you, that tends to be the way they work. They're let's just say they're not like the best government agency in the world.
clearly, I mean, but this was in
Yeah,
their prime here. I mean, they were
yeah.
doing some things in this
I
point.
think in the DEA, all you need is like a 1.75 grade point average. You get into DEA. It takes nothing to get to the DEA. It's the McDonald's of the government. Like,
Jeez.
hey, but next up we have, and this was kind of mentioned, it was hinted towards before with Franklin and Gustavo's conversation, but here we get to set up back at Louie's place. And this is when Louie gets on the phone with Teddy to make it seem like she's setting up Franklin. But Franklin and Gustavo are there also to listen to get everything to set up Teddy. This feels like, I thought, the usual suspects. I thought every film where it feels like you're going to get a double, triple, quadruple cross, and something bad is going to happen here. What do you think about just this initial setup of this conversation where we fully see all the cards are laid out on the table
This
on
was
what's about to happen? Because
this
not
was
only,
oh,
but
go
not
ahead.
only from Louis, Franklin, Gustavo's perspective, but also Teddy on the other end, and he clearly senses that something's off here.
Did he?
Yes, here he sensed that something was off because if without jumping too far ahead, that's part of the reason why he changed the plans on her at the last minute,
I
and he brings it up to Franklin at the end when he says, "Huh, I never thought she would actually do this."
see.
I think he was sensing something was off with Louis, but I don't know certainly if it's something off with Louis or if that's him and Louis set up, because Louis is the one here is the hardest to read in exactly what her plan is here.
Geez, I had like a bunch of thoughts. He just flipped my mind a couple of times. And first of all, this this was the shot of the season. This shot was
Mhm.
so amazing. Directed again by Uncle Jerome here. Uh just the eye of that silhouette of Louis on the
Mhm.
call, and I was like, there she go. She up to no good. And then it was like, oh, Franklin's there. Wow. And then we pan back out, and also there, I'm like, wow. I was like, okay, this I actually paused just to see how far we were in the episode, because I'm like, this felt like
That's
a
a good
very,
moment.
very good point in the middle of the episode to be like, yeah, whatever preconceived thoughts you had, throw that out the window, because it's about to get real. Which ultimately, on that note, I think this is really setting up for an explosive next week, because this definitely
We
paved the
always
ground for
say it.
something.
Yep. Mhm.
Yeah, but I did not sense Teddy being maybe suspicious is the word, but I won't say that
Yeah.
he definitively knew this wasn't right. I think he was kind of like, and also it's kind of hard to tell, like you said, it's kind of hard to tell with Louis, because sometimes her responses are kind of just like not
Yep.
convincing. Like when he changed the plan, she was like, okay. I'm like,
Yeah. Mhm.
you need to sound a little bit more. Listen, I've been listening to No Limit this weekend. I don't know why. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it real quick, because I've been wanting to say it so far this entire episode, but I'll just say it now. But Louis should have felt a little bit more about it when she
Oh, that's
agreed
the
that, like,
analogy she's about to use.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I wasn't going too crazy. I won't go, not yet, but I'm warming them
I
up.
thought she was about to say Louis was the Silk the Shocker of the crew. So I didn't know where he was going to go.
Nah, this all ad libs from No Limit. I'm loading them up. But yeah, I mean, like, she wasn't convincing at all. She was just kind of like, huh, okay. I'm like, listen, you're about to drop a body off. You're talking to Teddy, and you're about to cross him. Come a little bit stronger with that. Like, all right, bet. Yeah, I'll pull up. Don't worry. We'll drop on. We're gonna get it done. It
Mhm.
just wasn't, but yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be smart to not think that Teddy always is thinking someone's out to get him. It's just proper
Yeah.
assessing of him.
He's a
But
CIA agent. Why would he trust anybody?
yeah, especially you, Louis. Like, yeah, at this point now, you
Yeah.
just
You lost the love of your life. You
you
you're vulnerable to him.
yeah, or
You're
you just
someone who
may not
can be
just
turned and flipped.
or you just may not be mentally capable of doing it. You may be
Yes.
telling me you're going to do it just to get got yourself. Let's not forget, you just got. So
Yeah.
what's part two of that? By somebody that
Exactly.
sees it coming at that.
Yep.
So, but yeah, just to kind of sum it up. Seeing them all on the same page definitely was like okay, as the fan, not the person who reviews these things, but just as the
Mhm.
fan, you're just happy because you're like, oh, we're about to get
Yeah.
our favorites on the same page against Teddy, who happens to be the villain here. Which, by the way,
Why is Teddy the villain? Wait a
I
minute.
know,
Wait.
I
You
know.
know what?
I mean, but
Nope.
again, I
Nope.
said removing the fan. It's clear that Teddy's the villain, but as the reviewer, subjective. By the way, folks, Teddy, I forget the actor name. He's in a show on Apple TV Plus called Dear Edward, and he
Yeah.
plays first of all, just if you haven't seen his body of work, because that show is I think it's the finale just ended. Just seeing the range of his performances, because he looks damn near the same in both. Like he looks like a regular dude, which is interesting because like all I see is Teddy by face in that show, but this is range of acting. It's a phenomenal person. I think a lot of times in these shows we don't like to give the bad guys or the villains or the
or
not the
anybody the credit that they deserve for the range of they pulling off stuff.
yeah
Like Amin, who directs this episode, is amazing in another movie named Live, Die, and Live, which played at Sundance, which is amazing as he plays the Muslim sliding off the scales who happens to be a Hollywood director having to deal with his stepfather's death
yeah
and how that affects his family. Absolutely nothing like Uncle Jerome
yeah
at
yeah
all. But
Carter
we just don't
Hudson.
give them credit for that.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's something that you got to understand to pull off these characters.
yeah,
These characters have a lot of depth to them, and they have emotional weight as we see throughout this episode. There is not a single character that you could just say in this episode particular where you can say, "Oh, you just throw them away." Maybe one
yeah.
of those DEA agents, but that's about it.
Yeah, and I also like I don't want to be negative here, but I also feel like there was a comment that got under my skin too because I feel like it devalues everything we just said just now. Because folks be saying like, "Oh, we're going too deep into these characters.
Oh,
Why we shouldn't be riffing on them as long as we do." And I'm like, "Well, what show are you watching? All of this is about emotion. It ain't just about selling
yeah,
drugs and avoiding the cops and making money. It's all about Louis' whole character is driven on emotion right now. And within the last two seasons, that drive to be on top, to prove that she can hold it down,
is
and
it?
to losing her husband and keeping herself together, and to going against her nephew who is doing whatever he can to take
Yeah,
her down, and their internal war. And like, yeah, you can say whatever you want, they're family. This is an internal family battle that's happening right now. It's all driven off of emotion, and you can't play a character with
yeah.
emotion if you don't have any emotion. This is why people didn't like Brie Larson for a second, who is a phenomenal actor, but she also got into Captain Marvel because
I
she didn't
think
have any
it's.
emotion. It
I
wasn't her
think the
fault though.
issue is people don't want to look too deep into shows from our culture. Fans of the show fully understand what
Yeah,
this is. It's the people who may be the flyby guys who come in and say, "Hey, this is a show about drugs. I like shows about drugs. Let me try and watch this show and see what I get out of it." And it's like a show like Snowfall. Drugs is a surface. There's literally nothing different in a family dynamic from Snowfall than there is in Succession on HBO. Same exact family type of dynamic here. Same type of power struggle. It's just that, they use drugs to pull you in. And then
yeah,
you gotta stay and realize everything else that's going on about it. That's what makes this show, the powers, the wires, all these things amazing shows is because they pull you in with the surface stuff and
yeah.
then hit you deep at places that you're not expecting to feel.
You,
So we just feel it's necessary to bring that up to the audience. Like, nah, these are what these characters are going through. Do you
yeah,
not understand that we see it as Franklin needing his money back, but no one else is seeing it about him feeling that you've taken his life away from him? Because
yeah.
that's what he's fighting for here.
Here's
Go
here's
back to
a
season one. That's the reason he wanted to deal drugs, because he wanted a better life for himself.
here's a good comparison here for all the folks. And again, we love you all seriously. And go crazy this week too. But for all the folks who get into the comments with these emotional responses, you don't think the writers are coming with that same energy in putting together the show? It's like, you think you're the only person who can type or write something with emotion? You don't think the writers will have that same energy? It's odd to me. Anyway, to wrap up my point, Dear Edward on Apple TV Plus is a phenomenal show. It does star Carter Hudson, who you know as God, this guy's name that quick.
Teddy, Reed,
Teddy
whatever
Reed,
you
yes.
whatever you would like to call him.
Ex-CIA agent. Yeah, that guy.
Exactly.
He's phenomenal in it as the character John, who just you see Teddy in the show, but he doesn't act like it, and it's a very it's a very good show. But yeah, I just want to say to wrap up this point about in this episode, yeah, this is literally just a phenomenal shot, and then as we start to, it almost feels like a game of I'm about to say chess because it's not chess, of poker, where everybody seemed to have a vast amount of confidence that they have the better hand. And the way how we paying back saying, oh yeah, Louis got this in the bag, or does Teddy? Looks like Franklin may have something up his sleeve. Oh, Gustavo's here. Oh, this kind of evens the playing field a little bit here. Like, what's at stake? And honestly, let's take a second to break this all down. Like because this is a very complex scene. We know that Teddy wants Franklin. That's his plan. This is in complete revenge of his dad and the threat towards his son. That's why he wants Franklin. But also, it's a sense of I catch him before he catches me. So that's when we know his motivations at. Louis is the interesting one because Louis and Teddy have a little agreement going on. There was being the he was going to be she was going to be his distro, or essentially getting the product. He's the connect, but also Teddy's aware that, okay, well, we know that they're not at good terms because of what happened and whatnot. So he feels like he can leverage her on her side, but he doesn't seem to have complete confidence in that. Louis also does not like Franklin because, well, she blames him for everything, especially all the events that happened in the last few episodes. Then we have Franklin, who wants his money back by any means necessary, even if it means playing nice with Louis, which he knows he's on thin ice with that. But because for whatever reason, y'all can still explain this to me, he knows that, well, he doesn't know, but she expressed that she also wants to come from under Teddy. So now that the two of them needs to come and get away from Teddy, he's like, well, we can set him up. Gustavo wants to protect his family, and he's willing to do whatever he can to do so. Plus, he needs the passport, which he got from Franklin, and the money to get up out of there. And if the DEA can get Teddy, then he's good. So everybody's directing towards Teddy, and it's at this point now,
Teddy has become everyone's boogeyman.
Yeah.
And that's the issue here.
Yeah.
So not to say Teddy's the bad guy, because he's not of this show.
Yeah.
But he's the boogeyman of the show.
Do you think
he's the one everyone feels the need to get rid of?
Is he like Michael Myers and the second one? What was the second one called? Not Kills. The one with the entire town.
He killed the entire police force.
Not the entire town. Try to all rally together and all got
you know what? Yes, because it definitely feels like by the end of this episode, they all got together to get Teddy, and we know it ain't gonna go that way.
Yeah,
we already know it's not gonna go that way. But the next scene, and this is why when I say I have problems with people's names on this show, I literally heard someone pronounce her name differently in this episode. Someone has to explain to me how I've heard this name pronounced 8 different ways in one season.
Yeah.
But Ciamara, because that's the way they said it in this episode.
Yeah. And I've been saying Ciamara, so.
Yeah. Her and Gustavo talk about Gustavo's exit plan here. And this is the same conversations they've had at least 5 different times this season. But here, when Gustavo feels he's at the end, he gives her the code, let her know this is all for you. You're going to be the only one with this piece of information. And her tell Gustavo, if you think something is off, you need to step away from it.
Run the other way.
What do you think about her giving him this warning? Because it kind of felt like she felt something bad was about to happen.
She always has. So she didn't say nothing. She ain't already been thinking this entire time. Ever since Ruben pulled up in the kitchen, she's definitely like, listen,
something ain't right.
So,
and then she already knows he's working with Teddy. She knows that you're double crossing Teddy with Franklin, and then you get this gay KGB agent in my house. I don't know what's going on at this point.
Yeah, I honestly, I mean, she didn't say anything that he didn't already know. Maybe it's just a refresher mentally for him. I don't see how it applied because he did no running this episode. In fact, he tried to go through with the plans and got really lucky. So, but I again, I think it has a lot to do with her just being that supportive partner of his, and obviously having the kids in the forefront of focus of all it is. But she's not so on edge because he's done his part. The family's good. Now,
Yeah.
I do want to say one thing that was entirely funny. I don't know. I can't remember because I didn't rewind it. Did they say that it was his mother or was it her who got into it with the neighbor before they got out of there?
It was the mother. I think they said her mother got into it with the neighbors before they got out of there.
Bust out
So
laughing.
that's how they knew something was wrong.
I thought it was so. Can I tell you how accurate that had to be for them? It's like, okay, we gotta throw that in there. Like, listen, like get out of my way. Like, we out of here.
That's one of Jones. That's one of Jones. She's like, you know, I ain't lying. Her mama did this. And he like, damn.
Yeah. That's exactly what he cursed him out.
Man.
That was an amazing little tidbit to add into this episode.
Yeah. So let's speed through a couple of things here that aren't much to talk about, but things that pivotal happen in this episode. We find out right as Gustavo leaves the house that Ruben is spying and following him. We kind of already knew that. We kind of understand why. Ruben needs Gustavo so he could flip to get him Teddy. Next up is just Teddy again. Gustavo meeting again with Franklin to talk about the drop, the location, what time to meet him, things of this nature. This is, again, just a play off of the conversation with Louie and their conversations. Other than that, not much else to talk about there. Next, the most important thing next to possibly talk about could be Franklin and Veronique. Did I say it right the first time?
Veronique.
See, it's the R in it that makes no sense. It's Veronique.
There you go. Listen.
But I said Veronique. But Veronique is the way damn it. Damn English language. Franklin tells Veronique to leave the country if things go bad. He says, I need you to leave, and I need you to leave with my mother if things go bad. This is Franklin, in the end, thinking that he has a plan in place, but still fearful that Teddy can still come and get him.
Yeah.
What do you think about this conversation between the two and Veronique's response to Franklin in this moment?
I think, like, at this point now, it's like, you feel like you out here giving suggestions you don't even believe.
Hey.
I think she's a little bit more intelligent and a little bit more aware of like what's happening to have to take any advice from him into consideration, knowing that like I'm aware as much as you are aware of that. And actually, wow, that can seem like I'm just kind of ad-libbing there. That's entirely true. She absolutely know exactly everything that's happening. You're not going to be able to present her with a plan that she can't already put together herself. And in fact, her plan would always be better than Franklin's because she's more rational about it. And she got her mom to help her if she needed. So,
hey, you know, I'm petty. So all I thought of, see, your ass should have went with Cassandra. You did this one with your mama.
Here you go. You
had these problems with this monster. If you would just went with your mother.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man. Next up, Teddy and them have a conversation just about the money to marry. We already talked about that. We talked about it earlier this episode. Next up is Gustavo picks up the drop. This is him with the DA agent. I did not catch her name.
Me neither.
Nor do I think her name is important.
He mentioned it one other time, but I could bring it together.
But this drop is where it's just about, I think, comedic moments here. Also, I have a question about why were the people so concerned about who Gustavo brought? But Gustavo shouldn't be their connect because it should be Teddy. And he's just following orders of Teddy. So why would they even care who he brings?
This was a very interesting scene. And I want to say, by my knowledge of Narcos, it's pretty accurate here. They're doing the deal with the Colombians, and they're just like, listen, this person was never discussed. Who is this? She cute and all, but like, who is this? And he jokingly says, she's DEA. And to kind of bring a couple of scenes together, the lead DEA guy, he basically says like, she's one of my best. Talking about, I taught her, et cetera, et cetera. Just another person we haven't met, but she's one of my best. Well, she looked very confident in that situation. And I think that what Gustavo did was not unlike. We've been seeing Gustavo for 6 seasons now.
Yeah.
What we saw Gustavo was very normal for him in these situations. even in the scene where they did the drop and he was, the kind of debate before he went off crazy with the gun at the
Yeah.
at the pier there. There's always a little bit of comedy with him, and then he's a stone cold killer. I think he holds his composure very well when he's set in these situations. So when dude is like, well, who is she? She never brought her. You never brought her. It's like, oh, she's DEA. Come on, man. That's my cousin. Like, I need help to get this to LA. And they're good. They make peace with that. She's uncomfortable. And I'm like, well, if you're one of the best, why are you uncomfortable in this situation?
It's because he brought up to even as an agent, she would expect him to lie, but not always necessarily use the truth as a lie. Because she even said it. He said it in a joking fashion, but the point he said it is a problem.
I listen.
To them,
it doesn't make sense.
DA
How many
agents aren't
people
smart?
Yeah,
They're
it
not
does.
smart.
I see
That's
by
it.
that, like, I get it, because like, how many times have we seen films with spy and espionage where somebody gets interrogated and the first thing they say is, "You're a Russian spy. You're a spy." Da 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 da. They don't be like, "Oh man, you got me." Plausible deniability. You understand that. Matter of fact, this is why Teddy is so good. How many times has he been in a situation where they accused him of being something, and he's just like, call whatever you want. I'm here to do the job. Absolutely. It absolutely
because people don't want to believe the truth. He told the truth and they took it as a joke.
Yeah, imagine
but
coming
that's
up
what
there
normally happens.
Yeah, imagine coming up to a situation like, I hate America. I would never do anything for them. It's like, okay, this person's clearly fed. Like, go get their ass. You know what I mean? Like, so I just thought, like, Gustavo held it down. Obviously, this little bit of comedy between the Colombians and them got it. But I just thought it was so like, what's up with her? For the scene to now get to her going back telling the lead DA agent, like, I can't believe he did that. Like, something that seems off, and they're just like, all right, well, put surveillance on everything around him because of this. Something seems off. I'm thinking like,
it's because
everything seems pretty normal to me. I don't know.
Because they're not overly experienced in having to deal with someone like him.
Clearly.
So that was a trigger for them. It would have worked. Gustavo's plan would have worked perfectly with an experienced agent.
Yeah.
But when someone who's not experienced, it's not going to work that way because they're going to be terrified that you would even say that. What I pay way more attention to, if Teddy's making deals with the Colombians, which it looks like that's the case here.
Yeah.
Where would Louie go to get her drugs moving forward when she literally told them the reason she went behind Franklin's back is because she wanted to deal with Teddy instead of dealing with the Colombians? But now it kind of looks like if you're dealing with Teddy, you are dealing with the Colombians. So what would be the difference here? I pay way more attention to who picked up that drop than anything else. I'm like, wait a minute. This kind of throws a wrinkle into the plan of how do you move forward with it, any form of having business. If you burn Teddy and they find out, because in the end, you burn them if you burn Teddy. And they're going to just kill everybody at that point.
Yep.
Because the fear would be, what would Teddy say?
Yep.
Just don't we bring that up. But next up is the setup. I mean, this is the setup between Franklin and Louie. And this is Franklin needing to be beaten senseless to pass by Teddy.
Yeah.
I love the point that I don't know, I'd normally call him Sully. It is Scully. I got it, people.
All right.
Scully here. The moment Louie looks, he said, that ain't me. I'm not that person. And this is, for some odd reason, Louie not bringing any other muscle with her, having to beat Franklin senseless here. But we also see her get some of her real emotions out, and that's when Scully steps in here. What do you think about this? Did you think this was a fully therapeutic scene for Louie in a sense that maybe she got out all her frustration, or just this the beginning of it with Louie?
That's a great question here. First of all, we need to do Kumbaya with us and our fans here. Folks, I'm here to say that Louie got it all off her chest. She needed to throw them hands one time in complete frustration and break down. And I actually don't feel like she has any other gripe with him beyond that. I think that's all she needed. It's not to say that the root of the issues sort of
Are gone.
deserve
Yeah.
a bigger or deeper response. But sometimes this is just what some people need. You know, I listen, around my way, you had a beef with somebody, you threw hands and you dapped each other afterwards, and it was just all good after that. This is how you handle it.
Yeah.
You know, you square up. That's what it was, and then it's a wrap. I'm not saying this is the most successful tactic, but damn sure did it end a lot of beefs that probably weren't worth anything in the first place,
Or
and
would have made
bonded
it a lot
and made
worse.
or made extremely good friendships after that, and strengthening the bonds. And I think that Scully comes in as the therapeutic lens to the show. Now he sees it, he steps in and says, "All right, baby girl, you got it now. You got it all. Let's get to work here." So what was important to me, and again, based on like, you know, my knowledge and my emotions to this, was that she got it off what she needed to get done. Now she's completely locked in for what the plans are going to be.
Yeah.
I no longer suspect her of corruption or double crossing. I think now she knows, like, okay, let's get Teddy now. Let's focus on Teddy. And Louie had a lot of pent up anger and emotions and so on. And
Yeah.
she was throwing them things, man. But you know, I think that's just what it was. And granted, if something else comes down, I'll be shocked. But that's also good television. That's amazing television here.
But hey, take it a step further. It's also therapeutic for Franklin.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's actually what he needed. In that moment when Louie's hitting him, it's partially of him taking responsibility for some of his actions that he's done. It's Louie being able to get everything off of her chest, everything that's been building up with Franklin. Because if we go back to it, they were the closest at one point in time.
Yeah.
And then magically they allowed certain business decisions to separate them.
Yeah.
But it all stemmed from Franklin losing his money. Once that money went away, Franklin got turned to a different person.
Yeah.
To Louie.
And
Louie blamed Franklin for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Franklin understands what he did, and he still wants to be accountable for it, as we see in the playback scene we have with him when he hops the gate and he goes to their house, and he goes to the girlfriend house who he killed in season 3 or 4. I just want y'all to think about why I say Franklin's the villain. And just playing through that scene in his head again about what it means to be family and to protect your family.
Yeah.
And this scene was highly important to, I think, to both of them. This is one of those scenes where it seems small, but is extremely important to the story and to both characters of why they needed to do this.
I will add something else here. Only in boxing or combat sports do people openly admit getting beat was a complete positive thing for their career or their development. But actually, there has been a time in all of our life where we absolutely had to look in the mirror and say, I have deserved to have got smacked for what I did.
Hey.
I absolutely deserved that. And again, going back to the logic around the way, if you got in a fight, and again, who knows what that beef was about? But part of it was probably some of your fault. And you was like, man, I'm glad I got smacked up because I needed that, but we good now.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even about who won and who lost. It was just all about, we got it off our chest. We squared up and we did it like, you know, men, and was out the way. What's interesting about this is one other thing. Now, granted, when those altercations happened, we didn't like big audiences because there still is a level of embarrassment here. However, there's a supreme amount, as a kid, you don't really have this, but as an adult, there's a supreme amount of accountability in situations like this. I think that Veronique looking over here at this and seeing Franklin take the accountability for his actions and looking back, very much humanized this person that everybody has demonized the last couple of episodes in terms of calling him a monster. This is definitely a step forward for him in terms of him saying, like, no, I know we're up with a plan, but I deserve some of this beating right now. And looking back at Veronique, like, I know this is probably hard to watch, but you know, and I know I probably deserve this beating right now. Let her get it off her chest. Let me process this. And let's just all move together as a unit. It's literally a small scene that has major ramifications in terms of the unit of everybody working together against Teddy. So it was good for Veronique, was the other point. Was like, yeah, why you say it was important for them to? Veronique seeing that absolutely, I think, further enhances,
and that's why I was on
her safety net with him.
That's why it was only those four
That yeah,
there.
yeah, that's a good
Because
point. That's a
Scully is the
good point.
person who fully understands this. He
Yeah,
fully understands things like this are needed. Sometimes out of the worst, which you perceive to be the worst situations, comes the best solutions. And that's what this was here. She had to
yeah.
get it off her chest, and she beat the shit out of him to get it off her chest. But next up is, I'm calling this Pager Gate, because that's all we get here. Next couple of scenes, we get Gustavo making countless pages to people trying to reach him. We get the CIA, the DEA, I'm sorry, who for some odd reason he's suspicious here of Gustavo. I didn't understand why he would ever be suspicious of Gustavo in this scene. But when he
Yeah.
gets out the truck, we fully understand he thinks Gustavo is lying to him. Or at this point, I'm assuming he already has the information that he
No,
sent the
that
other
thank
agents
you.
to
No, no,
get.
no. There
Yeah,
is no
because other
assumption
than
on
that, it
that.
just would have made no sense at all
He
for him to
he
even
he
look
get
at
out
Gustavo the way he was doing.
he gets out
And that
he gets
story
out the
that he
truck.
told in the truck.
He gets
Yeah,
out the truck and say, "Who you been talking to, sir?" He can't get through to anybody. That's the problem, first of all. So if you really had issues, you should have said, "Who are you trying to talk to?" He's like, "Who you been talking to? Tell us." He said, "Dude, it was Teddy." After a while, he said, "It was Teddy." He said, "Okay," which it was Teddy. His mind
the
was
last
already
one.
made
Yeah,
up because they had already
yeah,
came through on that. So
yeah.
yeah, while
They already had the
Gustavo,
information.
they were looking for the smallest crack to make
And
this
it's
a
the
bigger
80s.
thing.
And it's the 80s. Understand, while now we have cell phones everywhere where information can be passed on immediately, the
Yeah,
DEA did not have cell phones in the 80s where they could just reach out to him. You had to have big money, and they didn't have the money for that. So that means he had this information on Gustavo before he even got in the truck with him.
yeah,
He had this information on him. So he was already overly suspicious of Gustavo's actions here.
yeah,
But Gustavo manages to actually reach Louis. Louis manages to reach Teddy. This is where Teddy tells Louis plans are changed. Instead of meeting me, you're just going to drop Franklin here.
yeah,
And here we see again, we fully understand, as you said before, Franklin's all about his money. Franklin says it's worth the risk to just drop me off here as long as Gustavo does what he's supposed to do. But here we also get the conversation between Gustavo and the DEA as they let them know we know everything. We know she's gone with the kids. Her mama up here fighting with the neighbors. So we know they and they arrest him to tell him the deal is completely off and we're just going to bring you in. Which, I'm going to say this for people that don't know, that in real life would never happen. The reason why, you sunk too much into this investigation to think you could just cut it off there because you don't trust him anymore. That ain't the way this works. If Teddy's the big fish and you put it out there that he is the big fish, there's no way you're going to turn off that investigation and just say, we're just going to arrest the little guy who we know's a middleman instead of going after the CIA or Teddy or any bigger person. That's the person we're going to go at. The DEA is known for making deals with small to middle ground people to get the big fish. See Young Thug. Like you're willing to do that to get what you think is or you perceive as the big fish. So that part didn't make any sense at all here.
yeah,
But part of that during that conversation is Teddy telling Gustavo he had 5 minutes to meet him. The only reason that's important because that put even more suspicion in Teddy's mind as we see him looking at the clock and he's waiting to hear or see Gustavo again. And
yeah,
he doesn't.
yeah.
The next big thing, Louis, Scully dropping Franklin off at the drop. And this is going to
Making
be a
it look
quick thing
real.
here. Yeah, clearly by pointing the gun at him the entire time, just in case someone's looking, because of what Teddy told them.
Yeah,
The biggest thing is to talk about is the end of this episode because that's it at this point. And that is the initial, as Franklin waited there, would it seemed like hours for Teddy to get there. And the small conversation we have between Teddy and Franklin here when Franklin realizes Gustavo is not coming.
yeah,
And then the fear that
yeah,
immediately goes over Franklin when he realizes that. And as you pointed out brilliantly, the first thing Teddy said, what is that you said about my son? That was his focal point, is because you threatened someone you should never have threatened here. And when Franklin is trying to make a deal, Franklin brings up the KGB, everything else, and Teddy says, already have all that information.
Yep.
And then he knocks Franklin out. What did you just think about this initial setup before we get to the big scene at the end of this episode between Franklin and Teddy? A conversation we've been waiting for. We just didn't think we would have it in this predicament.
And don't forget about the DEA getting ready to take Gustavo in, because that's part of this as well too. I felt fear too, because as we have no clue how the season's going to end, you start to think like, what in the possibilities would it be for if Teddy got his revenge and we get to see Franklin at a point of, I mean, it's kind of sad, but the duality here, Franklin getting got and captured and tortured for the sake of the threat that he's made, which is somewhat similar to what Louis' situation was, which is even more horrendous at initially. But it's like, you know, you got yourself into something you didn't have no clue you was. You thought you had this master plan. And by the way, folks, he's doing all this to get his money back. So
no other noble reason. It is strictly about the money.
Yeah, so you know, it's just like, okay, but no, I just thought like I again, you know, Damson, we don't have to talk about him as an actor, but like you can feel the fear and the desperation, and you start to think like, well, how much information is he willing to give up in order to get out of this? And we're just looking at Teddy because we know Teddy out in one ear, out the other. Either he already has this information, or there's no entire way that he's going to sit here and compromise at this point. Heck no. So I definitely was like, how is this all going to play out? And at this point now, we don't even know what's going to happen, because all you keep thinking is like, Dad, what's going to happen to him? What's going to happen to Gustavo, because he wasn't able to meet his half? Like, what is that going to do if Teddy gets out? What's that going to do for their friendship? Like, it's a lot to consider.
There's one big reveal that has not been shown to Teddy yet. And I'm waiting to see what happens when that reveal is shown to Teddy. Because that's the last piece of the draw here, as we see by the end of this episode what actions take place here. But just focusing on this conversation, the next couple of scenes, it appears Veronique goes into labor. This is the normal thing that you normally get out of these type of shows. Her sitting around and then her going in labor.
Here we go. Let me go ahead and annoy people in the comments right now. They was like, "Why you be going too deep? You making something that ain't nothing." Of course, this is what happened in these shows. We get it, but is this metaphorical for the gut feeling of her knowing something bad is was going to happen to him? And in fact, we almost lose Franklin, and then at the same time, she goes into labor. We done seen this in every show, in every genre, that whether it's a guy in the military, he's at war, and then there's a ballistic strike, and then his wife at home goes in labor, or if it ain't somebody on the moon and the mission ain't going as planned and they ain't going to labor.
It's not Apollo 13.
I mean, come on now. But I think beyond it just being standard television, could this have been the gut feeling of the same time, like, damn, I had a feeling something wasn't going to go right with this, as she sits in isolation, hoping that he comes back, knowing that he made a promise that he may not be able to fulfill. And at the same time, bang, bang, Franklin almost dies. She goes into labor.
Hey, I felt the same way during Aaron Hall's I Miss You video when his wife lost the baby by the poolside. If you don't remember that video, it's an amazing video. I know a lot of people, like, y'all young. The folks out there of age understand what I mean by the Aaron Hall I Miss You video when she lost the baby. And I thought of Veronique the same way here. Of the duality of the man being in trouble, which causes her to stress, which causes her to either go into labor or lose the baby. I don't know which one yet. No one knows which one yet.
Yeah.
And next up is Gustavo with the DEA transport here. And this is the cocky agent in the front in the truck, for some odd reason, extremely happy that she's on her way to sell drugs.
Also looking very confused too. Like, she just doesn't look like she belongs, bro. Like, she's like, it's almost like it's her first time on the job. So like, yeah, I can't believe I'm doing this, you know? Yeah.
She's the worst DEA agent ever. She's the worst agent ever. But here we get the cutoff of the car behind her, and is his hit. At this point, I knew it was Ruben from the moment I saw another car sneak up on them. The reasons why it would be Ruben, that's what I have questions about here. But
Yeah.
we see them getting ambushed by Ruben. We see as she gets out of the car carrying the drugs, she goes over to the car that was sideswiped by Ruben, and Ruben shoots her to get Gustavo to do what? That's the one question I have here. I've had
All
questions.
right.
I've asked questions this entire season. If he's actually the KGB, what the hell is his plan to get Teddy? It makes no sense. Here, he literally kills, or maybe she had a vest on. Doesn't matter either way. You kidnapped a witness and shot a DEA agent. Gustavo said a couple of episodes ago, the goal to set up Teddy was that the KGB needed the DEA to come in and arrest Teddy with the drugs. I'm just going to ask you and our audience, because our audience, I know y'all paying attention to this. I need someone to explain to me how any of these actions by Ruben makes any sense.
Got it. First of all, I didn't think it was Ruben because for whatever reason, it just went over my head quickly. So I was like, "Who is that?" And I was thinking, like,
I
who's
immediately
left?
thought it was Ruben.
Yeah, I just wasn't thinking hard. I guess I was so focused on her looking so happy-go-lucky in the driver's seat. I'm just like,
she looks so happy with those drugs.
yeah, I remember my first time I had a beer. Like, she
Hey,
had that look.
no. You remember Serial Mom? I forget with Kathleen Turner.
Yeah,
When she was killing people and looked extremely happy. That's how she looked behind the wheel of this car.
Yeah. So Ruben coming in to save Gustavo and say, "I need you to finish the mission." Okay, I'm like, okay, tell me more. One, knowing that, well, this only makes sense. Everybody else is after Teddy, so of course he would understand that. Well, he's been trying to use him the entire time, and he knows that the only person that can get close to him is
It's Gustavo.
Gustavo. Yeah. However, the interesting intel he had here was like, oh, he's at the warehouse with Franklin. So you've been following everybody. That's all you've been doing all day, just following everybody out here. Cool, my man. Doing the work out here. But
you see why that's an issue, though?
I mean, yeah, but yeah, time doesn't really
no,
allow.
Not even that.
It's like the Tariq.
He said to Gustavo, "I need you to finish the mission."
Mm-hmm.
My brother, you literally just shot and sideswiped the agents that could finish the mission.
I think
you, sir, are a foreign agent on U.S. soil.
I think
there is no mission at that point.
Yeah, I think, and I think you're right. I think you're jokingly, but right. I think the mission is off, and I think like, listen, I gotta kill this guy. I probably can't do it. I probably can't get close to him. Like, actually, that is what it is. I'm not even gonna sit here and speculate. I'm gonna go completely confident with that. That after the threat that Teddy made to him, and how Teddy just had Ruben shook in his boots, he says, "Man, I can't touch that guy." But Gustavo would get close to him. I can definitely try to kill him, but that's a 1 in 1,000, chance that I can even be able to do so. So he knows where he's at. He's following him. He thinks Gustavo can help him, and maybe the two of them together can derive a plan to do so. I think that has to be his logic, and I think that the plan to expose the CIA is out the window. I think at this point now he's like, "Hey, this dude got way too much on me to even be allowed to talk." Understanding, as we talked about in the previous episode, KGB on American soil and gay, that ain't a good look for anybody, especially him, but anybody around him.
If he wanted just to kill Teddy and he knew his location, Teddy doesn't know he knows his location. It ain't a hard thing to do at this point. He has the training to do it.
He did say he was a good Gustavo shot.
Because here's the weird part. He didn't even use Gustavo. Gustavo came in and told Teddy, said, "Where you been?"
I wasn't there yet,
and he
but
pushed him.
Yeah.
And then it made no... I'm only getting there because for Ruben, these actions don't make sense.
Nah, you're right.
All. And I am so confused here. The only thing I thought of is he's thinking, if I get Teddy along with them, I'm also thinking young happy-go-lucky driver from DEA has on a vest.
Yeah.
And he shot her because he sighted her center mass. You only technically shoot center mass at times in this situation because you think the person has a vest on. Other than that, you shoot two to the chest, one to the head, because that's the easiest way to kill somebody.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming he thinks she has a vest on and he shot the vest,
Yeah.
and that they would come after Gustavo because they still know the warehouse is where everything is, which brings up another very interesting thing. But before I get into that theory, what do you think about the end of this episode as we get Teddy about to drug or kill Franklin? I don't
Yeah.
know what he
He's
was
gonna
doing
now he
there.
said it's gonna put him to sleep. So
Put him to
that's what he
sleep.
said.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, man, things are getting real, man. How's this all gonna play out? It's literally my thought. Like it's about to get real. So yeah.
So here's my end question here for this episode, because at this point we do get that. We get the big fight between Gustavo and Teddy. I mean Gustavo, Teddy, Ruben, Franklin, as he hangs like every Mission Impossible movie I've ever seen from the
Yeah.
rafters with something tied around his neck. But here, after Gustavo is able to fend off Ruben, Teddy thinks Gustavo's going to release him. Gustavo instead goes and releases Franklin. Even through the process of Teddy explaining to him, Franklin is bad. His family's reason the KGB is here. All of this other stuff. And he ends up asking Franklin at the end of the episode, what do you want to do here?
Yeah.
I got a couple of questions, and then we can close out this episode. One, do you understand Gustavo's actions here? Because to me, they make absolutely no sense. Two, we understand Ruben's actions make absolutely no sense if we look at it as a vacuum of it being the KGB. If he did not kill that DEA agent because he knew they had a vest on, they still know that they're at that warehouse. What ramifications do that bring for the DEA coming after Gustavo? Because at this point, he can't get away from anything.
Yeah, hold on. Let me because you about to pack this up like a cake. They get to that house, they got Teddy. That's even better. They got
everything.
That fulfills the mission for them. Yeah. Well, everybody else can get out of there, but Teddy is still there, depending on what happens with Teddy. But if the DA get there, they can just say, like, we got Teddy, we're good to go, et cetera, et cetera. Gustavo looked at it in a sense, and I love how it looked like Gustavo was in a trance, because I think he was trying to quickly evaluate, like, like
who's the better option here?
Yeah, and obviously, who's the worst of the two evils here? At all given day, it is absolutely Teddy. And when Teddy's like, you know how the CIA works, they'll just keep coming after you. That's true, but not for you, Teddy. Not for you.
I think that's been the most interesting part of this season. None of them know Teddy's not actually in the CIA.
I am interested.
Gustavo doesn't know.
I'm thinking, like, does he have a sense of it? Because you have to think, what is his motivation right now? What you have to think,
loyalty is his motivation to Franklin. He made it because of what happened between them and that damn tiger. That's the reason.
Yeah,
because if he's thinking and he's smart, the person to side with would have been Teddy. Because if you thought Teddy was in the CIA and you thinking he's smuggling all these drugs in this country, unbeknownst to everyone else, you think he can't smuggle you out of this country?
I wouldn't trust Teddy. I mean, but listen, we know we don't trust Teddy because we know he says one thing, do another, and we know at any given point he has. Matt, listen. The first 3 or 4 episodes, the paranoia of Teddy and his actions had Gustavo shook. I don't think he's willing to risk that with his family. His family is not a threat by Franklin. That's the common denominator. When he had to sit there and evaluate and say, okay, Teddy definitely could come after me and my family. Franklin probably would not come for my family. He could come for me. Yeah, let's get Teddy out of there. Can't risk his 2 little Jedi sons.
Is it seeing the forest before the trees? That's the best way to put it. I love that analogy the best. The forest before the trees.
Possibly,
but is it putting the forest before the trees? And what I mean by that is, yes, Franklin is not the threat that Teddy is. The CIA wouldn't just be Teddy. if you think Teddy's in the CIA, you can literally kill him. That's not going to stop them.
Yeah.
Because they're still going to come after you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no stopping them.
Yeah.
But he would have been your way out. And that's what I just didn't understand, along with any of Ruben's actions here that don't get explained at all. But we did end this episode. Final thoughts on episode 8, Ballad of the Bear. Which
Got
is weird
nothing.
because the bear is the KGB. So I'm wondering, why did they name it that? That's a very interesting name here, because the bear is known as the KGB. So I wonder, I know y'all think it's a center. It's not the center. It's the bear. That's the center.
Yeah, I mean, we still Ruben. I don't think Ruben is dead, but he's definitely not
dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's just to see what Ruben's ultimate plan is and how does this all play out. But it's a good episode. You know, Uncle Jerome directing this and really setting up a lot of things to look forward to for next week. But overall, a solid episode.
Yeah, I think next week, as we always say, whenever a season is 10 episodes, episode 9, even for finale, is always the most explosive episode. Where because 9 is where you lay all your cards out, because 10 is where you clean up everything. So I think 9, we're going to see some very explosive action. So let us know, people, after you watch the episode, what do you think about the actions of Jerome? I mean, I said Jerome, Jesus. Of Louie and Franklin this episode. Have they reconnected, or is just a setup on Louie trying to get Franklin to trust her? What do you think about Gustavo's actions here? Did he make the right choice here? What do you think about Ruben? Do you think this is still a play for him being part of the KGB, or do you think this is just a play for him to get rid of Teddy because of the threat? And finally, what do you think about the happy DEA agent? Is she just an idiot, or is she dead?
Sayonara.
Exactly. And then thank y'all again for tuning in. Again, check this out after the episode airs. You can check us out, like, comment, subscribe, check out this, any other content we got, because there's plenty of it for you all to watch. I think that's it.
That's it.
Peace, people? I think that's it. Well, peace for some of y'all, not all y'all. For you negative people, no peace for you. No peace for you this week.
Peace out, y'all.
Big old bell.